Today I'm publishing the constitutional and democratic case for Scotland having that choice. It is rooted in the principle of self-determination, in the material change of circumstances since the 2014 exercise of that right, and in the democratic mandate that exists for offering the choice afresh. In a voluntary association of nations such as the UK, it cannot be in the interest of any part for a right to choose our own future to be conditional or time-limited or a one-off. Nor is it right for it to be overridden by a Prime Minister or indeed by a First Minister. It is a fundamental right of self-determination. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming along here this morning. The ability for Scotland to exercise that right now matters because the alternative is a future that we have rejected being imposed upon us. Scotland made very clear last week that it does not want a Tory government led by Boris Johnson taking us out of Europe and down a path that we haven't chosen. But that is the future we face if we don't have the opportunity to consider the alternative of independence. And it is a very different future to the one in prospect when Scotland voted no to independence in 2014. There has been a material change in circumstances for offering the choice afresh. In a voluntary, the right to choose is not just a demand from me as First Minister or from the SNP. It is based on the solemn right of the people of Scotland to decide our own future. The Scottish Government believes that right should be exercised free from the threat of legal challenge. In line with our values, we acknowledge that a referendum must be legal and that it must be accepted as legitimate here in Scotland and the rest of the UK, as well as in the European Union and the wider international community. We are therefore today calling on the UK Government to negotiate and agree the transfer of power that would put beyond doubt the Scottish Parliament's right to legislate for a referendum on independence. Together with the constitutional and democratic case for that transfer of power, we are also publishing the draft legislation that would give effect to that of independence. And it is a very different future to the one in prospect when Scotland votes. It is for the Prime Minister to defend why he believes that the UK is not a voluntary union of equal nations. It is for the Prime Minister to set out why he does not believe people in Scotland have the right to self-determination. It is for the Prime Minister to explain why he believes it is acceptable to ignore election after election in Scotland and to override a democratic mandate stronger than the one he claims for his Brexit deal. Now, the Conservatives' only response to this so far has been the referendum result in 2014. They use that result to justify doing whatever they want to Scotland, no matter what people here think and no matter how much damage they cause to people's lives. The Tories are in effect saying to people here that democracy in Scotland stopped the day we voted no in 2014. That cannot and that will not hold self-determination. In the new year, I will also ask the Scottish Parliament to back the case we are publishing. The Tory position will not prevail. Democracy will prevail. So today I urge people in Scotland, regardless of our differing views on independence, to rally round the case for Scotland's right to choose, our right to self-determination. This is not the time for Scotland to give up on reasoned and democratic argument. It is the time to pursue it even more confidently. Let's assert our rights as an equal nation and partner. Let's imagine a better country, a Scotland which is at the heart of Europe, a welcoming, outward-looking nation, a country where we get the governments we vote for. A Scotland with full powers to lift children out of poverty, create a fairer country and a more prosperous economy.
As well as you did at last week's election, 45% of the vote was behind you. Is it you?
You know, I think everybody in Scotland knows, the dogs in the street, to use the colloquial term, know there's going to be an independence referendum because you cannot stand in the way of the right of people of Scotland to choose their future. And I think the decision for the Tories is that do they willingly and in a reasonable fashion, as was the case in 2014, accept that, or do they seek to block that in a way that frankly makes my job easier in convincing people that the right future for Scotland is to be independent.